I guess that means that we're going live. I am just waiting for this shit to show up. Yep. Looks like we're fucking doing it. Okay. Why is that? Just having a quick check here. Okay. Now I can see everything. Feel like we're going. All right. Great. So I'm going to hide that for a second. It seems like we're rocking there. Okay. I want to be on the microphone a little bit more. And I think I'm going to start. Yeah. It's been a while since I've streamed, and I just like keep thinking about how good of a practice it's been for me. I live on an island, and I don't really get to interact with people of my special interest very much. But I do have my notebooks. I think about them a lot. So let's do that. Got this notebook in New York. We were like walking by a Moleskine store, and as a notebook nerd and calligraphy fanatic, I was like, oh, I gotta stop in here. And they had these like really cool Peanuts products. And I did not buy the book bag. I did buy a 3-pack of these. I don't prefer lined, but this is just one of them. So I thought it would be maybe good to start and just get some of these thoughts out before I figure out what exactly we're gonna do. So if lost, please return to. I think we got to fill this part out. Please return to tangle and weave. When I lose notebooks, I don't know, part of me hopes that somebody's just like, fuck yeah, I'm going to finish this notebook. I hope there's like some finished notebooks out there that I have no idea about. I'm not doing this for a practical purpose, but it's a good way to relax and get started. And it's always nice to have more tangle and weave variants to use for the stream and stuff. I did a presentation about the stream yesterday, and should probably talk about that. Seems like a pretty practical place to start. It's actually a good summary of things. So, yeah, boom. Please return to tangle and weave. Anyway, let's check out what this presentation was like. Actually, woof. Don't like that keeps coming up. Anyway, we're gonna go over to here. Oh, great, cut transition. I might be in a, okay, I have the presentation over here and it was present. Boom. Let's get that out of the way. Don't really need it right now. And I prefer to present from like the notebook here, and then put it in this Zen. How do I get to see? Okay, and then let's go into Zen mode. So let's walk through this. I've got this concept of for the talk that I came up with the notebook as a stage, and it was meant to kind of illustrate sort of the flexibility of like digital notebooks as a medium, and then afterwards I drew a list of things that notebooks are, and then I guess I just colored it in with digital rain or silver rain. But what is it? It's a stage, a module, a canvas, a presentation, a video, a comic book, a zine, a file, a data, a collage, a text, a figure, a application, a program, an experience, an art, a craft, a notebook, a. So, yeah, no, I see these things as like being dynamic because they notebooks help you capture the work. So in capturing the work, you can kind of you create artifacts for a lot of different things if you capture the process, and kind of the whole motivation of the presentation was to talk about how video is a better medium for this is drawing. We're on computer programming, keyboard programming. There we go. Let's just do this for a moment because I think I can live in here right now. So I think the thing I'm curious about, so at the meeting, there were a lot of people. It was a Jupyter community call. I don't know when they put out HackMD June. So the June HackMD. There we go. So this was the community call. There were a bunch of folks there, and there were some agenda items. There were a lot of updates about logistical things, and then I got to present later on, and I was the first notebook there. And this is the notebook I showed. So let's get to our. What the heck? How did I get that before? Control C, Control C, Control C. No, where am I? Huh. Okay. I wonder if it matters what has focus. Anyway, so the big question I have, like with all of this flexibility is of the notebook and all like the different things that it can be, why do we keep using them to do the work of the old? And this is not anything novel by any means. I don't have that book around me on the floor at all. But anyway, the first image that we have here is from a presentation that me and my buddy did a long time ago. It was a fun one. It was very, everything we do is chaotic as far as the presentation goes. But this presentation focused on this concept of computational skate parks and thinking about like skate parks and their architecture and how that is sort of parallel to open source. So this never got recorded. I don't think any of our talks ever did. We have one talk recorded, but what we were trying to do here was sort of like draw parallels, just like visually, just by putting shit next to each other. That says that skateboarding and programming have a lot of similarities. We talk about so there's some Bauhaus in here. I wouldn't make some of these semantic choices these days. I'm getting a little bit stuck about some of the things I did typographically. Like visually, I get it. But now that I know what I know with a screen reader, I wouldn't make these same choices. So yeah, it was a fun one. Really enjoy giving talks with Nick. We had a good part on the arc was skate parks, and then sort of like how critical demos have been to skateboard culture and like showing off the sport and making sure that like youth can figure out how to do this stuff on their own. And then sort of the hyperactive practicing and programming and fundamentals you have to learn in the middle, and then how you fucking crush it. a demonstration. Everything starts as a demo, and you don't know if if it's going to become a demonstration or a demolition, and that's sort of like the exciting part about the demo, I think. Anyway, so this we start with the skate park concept, and I'm really obsessed with this idea that is forgotten in some of the original work on hypertext. So hypertext. Let me introduce the word hypertext. Right, like that says it all. So in this paragraph, hypertext and hypermedia are introduced, I believe. And then the next one, we talk hypermedia shows up in the next sentence or next paragraph, but there's also this concept of hyperfilm, which is sort of like a, I don't know, like a container or a frame for all of the hypermedia. So I think it's interesting that we have this like really dominant aesthetic and understanding of what hypertext is and what hypermedia is, but hyperfilm I think is a concept worth studying, and I think it's possible to study through notebooks and through filming the process, and is demonstrated in a lot of places. So then we got this video with Ted Nelson and Werner Herzog. I've listened to this a bunch of times. It's just so, God, I get so choked up. It's such a delightful fucking video to listen to. The respect that Werner Herzog has for Ted Nelson is just incredible. Then I go back and talk about some history. So in like 2016, I hosted a Jupyter event in Atlanta, and one of the talks was from Paco Nathan. I think I've talked about him before. I very much idolize him and the work he does. But anyway, in this presentation, we learned about a technique that O'Reilly was using where woof, a technique that O'Reilly was using where they would have a notebook made by somebody. So in this case, it was Peter Norvig, who was the head of engineering at Google. And the video and code and narrative are all synchronized together. There's a quote in here. In Oriole, we get the complete integration of video synchronized with the flow of text, as well as the ability to execute the code. This is probably as close as we can get to learning side by side with Peter himself. So, like, I think that's what I'm trying to get to. Is like, how do you get like closer? How does the teacher not have to be present all the time? There's Donald Knuth as a basis in here, but even like Ted Nelson's work even like precedes a lot of Donald Knuth's prescient work. It was amazing what those men were able to envision and to even create. There's some suggestions we get from this. So like in 2016, I heard this. So I've had these like guidelines in my head about presenting notebooks, and I've been practicing presenting notebooks. I don't really think I've ever used a slideshow except for maybe once or twice to accommodate somebody else, and it wasn't anything but screenshots of a notebook. For me, like in our list, they are a collage. So it really helps like focusing on a unit of thought. One of the reasons that like notebooks usually get fucked up is you put too much stuff in it. I don't know, in calligraphy, I call it over flourishing. Sometimes you can just do too much. And at that point, it is either a throwaway or something you try and split into another thing, but you have to narrow your focus. I don't know how much I believe in this one, but I respect jazz. I don't know if I like it. Yeah, linearly non-linear, because like this is one of the ones where maybe like the medium allows for a different kind of interaction. Being able to hit pause is special. The most important thing though is clear all the output and run all, or it didn't happen. And this is something that I have been championing for a really long time, which is restart and run all, or it didn't happen. Rah rah, GTFO. So this is the idea that there's a complaint that notebooks have hidden state, which they blame it on the notebook rather than the author. Yes, it allows for hidden state, but language does, like, also. So their hidden state indicates a nonlinearity. But restart and run all says that, yeah, this thing can work linearly, but there can also be like nonlinearities within the execution. So there are conditions in this blog post for restart and run all. There are some tests. There are some exceptions that kind of describe things. It's written as a literate program. It's one of the ones that I've spent more time on. And again, yeah, here's the nod to the original here, and here's that same list. So like I said, I've been influenced by this for a while, but I don't see many folks like saying how to write good notebooks. And I think that one of the most valuable things is that restart and run all, or it didn't happen. In fact, when I'm doing like accessible notebooks, whether it's executed, partially executed, executed in order, executed out of order, there are different conditions. You know, like you could run a notebook completely in order, but it's not monotonically increasing. You might share that, just, you know, because, you know, you have to share, and that's okay to share the process. But ultimately, that's a unfinished, it's like unbaked bread. Not until restart and run all are you assured that this thing can be evergreen, or it's taken root. So yeah, that presentation, that performance, that event was very important to me. So I think I realized that if we look at that HackMD, I realized that this was sort of out of maybe not the best place to start crapping on presentations. But they were announcing JupyterCon 2025, and I thought that it was prudent to talk about how how presentations are inequitable. I don't think the travel's safe. I don't think they're accessible. Uncertain risks. So many people like the fucking hallway track that you might as well be presenting to a bunch of stuffed animals. And, you know, increasingly time and spoons are precious. So, like, I think that streaming and like digital video and art is a way to, where'd that fidget go? There it goes. Are a way to liberate some people and some ideas. And I've found that the notebook is really kind of good for that.
Don Knuth, image. You are currently on Markdown cell content, group, bullet load, Markdown edit text, greater re-edited,
shit.
it cells, group, code cell content with output,
Jupyter
group.
sucks.
You marked image, H, T. You are currently
Okay.
on a all your base, group. The poor image is a RAG or a RIP, an AVI or a JPEG, a lumpen proletarian in the class society of appearances, ranked and valued according to its resolution. The poor image has been uploaded, downloaded, shared, reformatted, and re-edited. It transforms quality into accessibility, exhibition value into cult value, films into clips, contemplation into distraction. The image is liberated from the vaults of cinemas and archives and thrust into digital uncertainty, at the expense of its own substance. The poor image tends towards abstraction. It is a visual idea in its very becoming. Visited, link, in defense of the poor image. A great notebook, caps lock, on. You are currently on a selectable text.
Great. So I think that this
Streaming and Jupyter Lab. Markdown cell content, group. Voiceover off.
I think that this paragraph indicates that video is critical. Even the poor quality of the image, regardless of the quality, is important to be shared and distributed. We don't know what part of the work people will appreciate, and that's kind of where the cult value comes from it. So, like, to liberate code, to liberate science, to make it open, the author is going to lose their share of the provenance, and a successful media will be just like milled and destroyed by other folks, but that's a good idea. But that's it's this. Jane Jacobs would say differentiations create generalities, and then she says generalities create differentiations. So like you're really, and this is in her law of natural economics. So like there is really a set of like natural economics that this is concept is bringing here. So that's kind of what it sort of liberated me from thinking about the notebook as video, because it doesn't have to be great, but like just putting things together. And oh, somebody just shared some thing. What's it, the I forget what it's called. Anyway, so it makes you think like, what's a great notebook? It's accessible and it's reproducible. Something that can go through all of these, media mills. So like, if you need a hella environment to make your notebook work, it's going to be really hard for that to happen. If you are downloading too much shit, then people in low bandwidth connections aren't going to be able to use it. So accessibility and reproducibility, and getting layers of media that are more portable than others. Like the scientific paper is a fucking anchor. Fucking anchor. Being an expert standing in place. It's not very good for experts in all these dying fields we have right now. So, anyway, we got to record the process. If we're being constrained by systems we're in, we need to look towards art as a liberation. So anyway, I started getting to some of the earlier experiments with different media formats. Like this is Duchamp here. And people might have their own opinions about Dada, but they're blunt and they hit you in the fucking face and they make you think about it when you're not thinking about it. And that's what good work should do. And here you have a bunch of like non-concentric circles that when they start spinning, they appear as if they're spiraling. So I think it would be really interesting to do a study of these circles in HTML, and then think about what the implementation or degrees of freedom would be like. Every time I go to that part, oh God, I love this. This is like that. Never mind. We should just like watch it. This is like a picture of letters on some felt. Oh, it's just gorgeous. Just like, gah. It won't let me make it big. Now it's over here. There we go. That's good. So you have this circle in the center, clearly, and then everything else is non-concentric going around it, creating just like a delightful illusion. And could we have things like this interacting with the maximum or the minimum or the point you're supposed to be looking at? See, this is actual letters glued to something spinning. It's just magical. Here's another one. So what we start to see here is that they're playing with the different degrees of freedom. So this one's clearly moving fast. I don't know. This might not actually be moving faster, but we could. I wonder if that's the static version or not. I wonder if that is like a video I don't know how that's magical. Anyway, we should study these. This one circles and circles. So this one looks like they're playing with weight and tone, and doing that as a study. So we can do these things now a lot easier with all of the features of the browser, and they're good studies for understanding how to create a visualization, how to create movement, how to manage movement, and then like when you apply it to your own problem, you're a little bit more prepared. Like tying practice to a problem can be difficult because then you misconstrue it as the way to do it, but it might not be. So another one that would be really cool to, I think that this is totally practical to implement in CSS somehow. And predicting the position, it would be easy to compute the positions of these things. What you're kind of seeing is just like nonlinear dynamics in CSS. And what's cool is now we have like the sine function and the cosine function in CSS. So that gives us a lot more possibility, especially with like rotating and circular things. Cool. More. Oh, this looks like some Kandinsky ass shit. Oh, I love this. So this one actually kind of gives you like a 3D, like falling into a tunnel kind of feel. It almost feels like this one would have perspective on it. So maybe in some of these studies that we're proposing here, even thinking about the z-axis, and then if we rotate the frame, maybe it starts to look conic. We actually have an entirely different way of modifying the outcome of these things and moving beyond circles, but still using circles. Like the overlaps and the intersections will create some crazy looking stuff. I wonder if that's what was going on over here. I think this might be a circle cutting off a circle is what we're seeing. And that's how you make these shapes. So it's like a circle as a mask over a circle. See, here. And then the span of these things, the angle span starts to get smaller and smaller. Okay, so I think what would be fun to do with this one is to like maybe like pull it into like scikit image and map out the labels and the centers of this stuff and take like you could almost like take this video and deconstruct it into data as another practice because like the proposition is that we can do data visualization as art. And learning to manipulate data is key to that practice. It's like learning to work with a paint. So from the accessibility perspective, or well, first, the next part of this is like, what does video add? And one of the things is like Jupyter, we said, was having this conference coming up, but like in between there's development meetings and there's like very little kind of place for other folks to participate in between. Like the luxury of being in person is a luxury. Traveling sucks. I don't want to do it anymore, and that stresses me out. So I think that this digital thing is, again, liberating in that concept. But also, like you look at modern digital cultures like skateboarding, BMX, voguing, rollerblading, roller skating, calligraphy. Like calligraphy wise, calligraphy's always been a static idea, but like, I mean, the work of doing calligraphy is much different than just like drawing letters. It's making movements with your body that create lines that draw these letters, you know, and like seeing that really has helped like a new generation of people learn. And it captures the work around the work. It captures the process. Like sometimes it's like hard to go and look at a like skate video of a pro who's just like amazing and they never fall. And then you're like, well, what the fuck? I keep falling. Like this sucks. I'm never gonna be good, but like you'll know how many hours it took that dude to do that. Or how many like pairs of clothes they had to change into to keep looking good. There's a lot of illusion around it, I find. So the accessibility perspective of these videos is that it's extra challenging because video and audio are the only HTML elements that have like multiple text channels in them. A lot of elements have the label and the title, But the textual channels here can exist for subtitles, captions, chapters, and even like random metadata. So it kind of gets back to that Oriole concept where there was a video playing, and I feel like if I was to implement this, I would implement this as a track element and say, hey, there's some metadata here. Go to this ID, run this code, run this cell, and in theory, the like video and audio elements could provide a whole guide through a work. So that kind of gets to, I got to like two modes that I've been experimenting that I found like happen. One of them is the video to the notebook. So this one's like a little bit more difficult to practice. It really requires a good scope and constraint for the study or the work. And what the expectation, or what you often do, is start from a blank either page or blank like Jupyter notebook, and then spend like an hour, hour and a half creating something special from that. The scope is the most challenging. Being prepared, like cleaning up your physical space was important. And talking through the process is hard, especially when you're in it. So talking out loud, super important. And I really think that like one of the most important things is for like these elevated feelings and emotions to come through. And that's kind of what we're trying to capture. So some examples I have are, I was working with a student who's a screen reader user, and we went and designed they needed a accessible heat map for their course. So we went and designed a table that was easier for the screen reader to read. And we're actually like in an hour, hour and a half, we're able to like do some consulting and come out with an assistive technology for like a very specific topic. And then some other ones here are I feel like if the technique for using HTML and CSS to visualize stuff, like if we're going to use that, I have to be able to implement it in a short period of time. So this test goes from a blank notebook to actually plotting video elements. I really love where this gets to towards the end. Let me just go and kind of speed it up here. Oh no, wrong way. Playback speed. Yeah. I think it'll look better if we do it this way. And then, yeah, so this is like doing live calligraphy inside of computational calligraphy. These were just some like natural experiments that I got to. Yeah, I don't know. At this point, I feel like it doesn't matter what the word is, right? But it's a fun one to see all mashed up together. Anyway, I'm really happy about this one. Sometime I want to do it where it's calligraphy letter forms in the plot instead, with some like skeletonized or something like that from SciPy. Anyway, that was fun. I'm happy about that. I don't know if I showed that in the presentation, but it should be recorded at some point. So when that happens, I'll probably watch that. I hate the idea of watching myself, but actually more recently I've actually become more comfortable with it because I've been practicing. It just takes practice. There was a time when I did bike tricks that it was more familiar, but it just takes practice. So one of the things that I've found in this research is that when you have a notebook and then you make a video of it, the retrospective, the stream itself actually creates it happens. So like one notebook always becomes two notebooks if you start doing the streaming technique, and can kind of get a high level view. Like, so there's at least like, I don't know, 7 or so, 8 streams that I've done here. I feel like I have like a failure or two that I haven't put in there. Sometimes you fall on your face and it sort of sucks. But this one was a good one where I actually talked and critiqued a presentation I had done the night before. So I like to do sort of retrospectives of the presentation that I gave. And I think we'll really have to just watch it on YouTube at some point. So I'll have to bring up this topic again. But in this one, I was able to actually film another video. So this was one notebook became 2 notebooks and 2 videos. Really interesting, the natural organic co-developments of all of these things. And I just showed an example of the video in the video, but this is the concept that's been interesting me so much. There's a study that I saw. Okay, let's go. And we want to be in drawing mode. Drawing computer. Yeah, sure. Drawing computer. So let's go transition over there. In this book form space and vision, there's a bunch of stuff. It's beautiful. Where'd it go? I thought I put a thing in it. Didn't I put a thing in it? Did the thing fall out? Oh, found the thing. Wrong. How'd you get up there, buddy? What the heck? What a useless thing. There it is. So there's this like optical illusion thing from the, it looks fun. There's this optical illusion thing. Am I? Yeah, okay. Yeah, optical illusion. So I was like, oh, this would be a cool study because it's simple and I could do it in HTML. So in 10 present, no, 10, no, 09 illusion. So this was the first one. And we were able to recreate the effect. But what's interesting now is like when we go and do these studies and we create our own solutions for them, we kind of get to feel them in our hands, almost like in a modelish sort of way. So the only 2 degrees of freedom that we kind of put here was the amplitude and the radius. So the amplitude of a sine wave, which again is nice because we have the CSS thing we can use for the sine wave. I don't know if that's all in all browsers yet, but just by kind of like playing with the radius and the amplitude, we get like really fascinating shapes and planes and textures. And I'm starting to realize with these things that I should be adding z-axes like right away, because then you can go and in theory I could be turning this, and I wonder, I have no fucking clue what it would even do. It would be magical. Anyway, I wonder if the sine wave is, if there's a way to think of the sine wave even rotated. So we did this study, and then we've done these video studies. So I was like, okay, cool, let's put all of this together. And this time I'm going to use the overhead camera. I'm going to go to allow transition. Shit. I wasn't showing those things at like full screen, was I? They're beautiful though. Anyway, another time, missed it. At least there's a picture of it. And it's cool because, even if we go through this form book that we just saw, we start to see some of these shapes in other drawings. But learning how to make planes and lines with computers is an important study for anybody who wants to be a data. I don't think data visualization is like the right word, because I don't know. We're thinking about something a little bit more artistic and studied. Visualization lacks that to me. Data art, data craft. So yeah, these studies are fun. So now we go down to this one here, and what we've done in this situation is, put it like 40, 50. Okay, so now we're pretty big. Yeah, no, the the keyboard looks so cool, actually. Yeah, so what we've got here is we've got all of these circles, and then they're all very blurred. I think the Stream Deck might actually look neat. Yeah, those are the keys in the Stream Deck. So it's kind of like this weird mirror. And it's sort of cool. I don't know. I think it's interesting, like when you start thinking about something as a mirror. I think it's this way with bang. No, this way. Yeah, that's so great. And some of the other thing we can do here is we can mess a little bit with the opacity. Maybe that's too low. And then, yeah, it starts to have this very like brush-like sort of abstract expressionist quality to it. I don't know. I really like the way you have it'll bend around the back up here-ish and here. So yeah, this is all of those circles, just, video elements inside of them, and putting a few things together. But I think there's stuff that's interesting with these studies. Like, part of me is interested in going and doing a study in different mirrors. There's a set of there's a Liechtenstein series cut. Transition. Okay. So there's this Liechtenstein series where there are these paintings, and you think they're crazy because you look at it and you're like, what's this dumb painting? But then when you look and you realize it's called a mirror, it like almost like starts looking back at you. And these were inspired by some older mirror advertisements where it's just like frosted paint over the mirrors with no reflection, right? Like it's actually weird to think about a mirror being that like almost sterile. But there's something interesting when you like acknowledge that something's a mirror, you immediately are like, oh shit, there's like a selfness to it. Like it's looking back at you. So I think that there are like fun mirrors we can go and start making with some of these video concepts. Cool. All right, so we did the video circles, loved it. We did the Bauhaus circles, loved it. We did the Duchamp circles. We did a community call. And then this one was when I was doing these Palmer penguins and putting a little toy in there because I needed a penguin. This is something my wife and I made together. We were dating early on. But this is like points plotted with video elements in the points. I was still figuring some shit out, but I think it's come a little bit further from the last example. And then these are nice, nailed it. This one's gonna Nope. Hates it. Great. And then another one. Nice. Okay, this one we got one. So this one was just some example, and this has some pandas in it actually, and then some plotting and some janky representation. But to me, it just is. It's delightful in its irreverence to the grid. Anyway, cool. So that got me to the end of this, which is this idea of video being a good mirror for me, sort of as so like, I guess I don't really expect people to ever watch this shit, but I've been watching it, and it's a good mirror for me. It has the poor quality that I like, and I don't know. It's interesting to like mull on video being one of the most perceivable media types, accessibility wise, because it has so many text channels. B-roll matters to the culture. So, you know, oh, this isn't right. 1 minute of video for a 1 hour stream. So like, it's, if we're having a meeting talking about what we could be doing, if we were filming the meeting, we could be creating a minute of content if the meeting's an hour long. If it's a half an hour long, maybe we get 30 seconds. These are just rough approximations, but that's why streaming is a good way to do this. So it's more about building a backlog and not viewers. At least for me, I'm finding the act and the work important, because I can go back and use these like references, these organic like stream of thought references, which are more natural for me, and reference those later on. So the final thing is just set up OBS and get going. I think we really need some more. What the heck? I really think we need some more. That's funny. That's weird. I think we need some more notebook streams out there beyond like basic stuff. Same thing with accessibility. It's really hard. You can get in the door, but it's like really crowded. And to do like some of the advanced work is hard, because the resources are so densely populated on the getting started, that the complex parts aren't really recognized. So I suppose like this like video and art perspective is a means to overcoming some of this stuff. I keep thinking about the word liberation, but I mean, it kind of feels actually right to me in this situation. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully somebody might see this, or I might share, or maybe I said something worth a damn, and people might be able to go and share, or use some of these ideas, or I might be able to use some of these ideas eventually. And yeah, what are we on to now? I think we should get back to Snoopy. What you got, Snoopy? Where'd I put Snoopy? There's not even a Snoopy on here. I actually don't think I have one with Snoopy. That actually now that I look back on it, I'm a little less happy. So the other thing, I think I've showed like a lot of my more recent work, artwork at least. The other thing I keep thinking about is like what frames the notebook, like frame. But like this notebook could go in a box. It could go on a bookshelf, and now that frames the notebook. Right now the camera frames it, like this flexibility that I talked about in my list of like things that a notebook could do. makes it hard to establish what the frame is. And I don't know what the frame, I really can't figure it out. I do know that, like, what I have figured out is that, at least on a web page, the document of the web page frames the notebook. But what frames the work, what frames the context, we don't really know how to put that stuff in there. And, like, for art to exist for a long time, like, we need to know that information, like, it's part of the text. Again, more like thinking about the frame sort of stuff. But I remember hearing once and never forgetting, when you negate the frame, you evoke the frame. So if you anti something, you actually bring, like, the idea of something along. So then it says, move along, nothing to see here, crossing it out. But then it got me thinking, I remember seeing some of the Basquiat notebooks, and people, and even in his fine artworks, people have asked, like, why do you cross out words? And he says, I cross out words so you see them more. So this idea of negation isn't really possible. It's more like, how does, like, the positive and the negative interplay anymore? This was a doodle. It's thinking about suspended judgment. This is a judgement. And there's this, like, weird person down here. And it's kind of more like the suspended judgment, and, like, being like the sword of Damocles, ready to fucking drop at any time. How long do you get to think for? Anyway, what's this? I think I was thinking about thesis as death, ego death. I started realizing that, like, a thesis and data visualization can never be forward looking. They might give the illusion of forward thinking, but they're always retrospective, backward looking. Things that are actually forward looking are, like, Afrofuturism kind of lies there. But there's not really much else. The other way, like, the practice of data visualization, the practice of research, is forward thinking. Capturing that process, forward thinking. But the text and the thesis are always backward looking, because the thesis has the hypothesis, the hyperthesis, the antithesis, right? It's sort of this idea that like the good and the bad have to exist at the same time. The good, the bad, and the not. So this is another, really, this is not completely framed. So sometimes, I think a lot of times what I do when I'm looking to kill time is I'll draw some words and then figure out how I want to frame them. Because it lets you put two things that can't be near each other or next to each other or might be insoluble. It creates a context where they have to exist at the same time, and it makes you think. This concept is actually more on the physics side of the frame. And in physics, we have a situation where we can either like track a physical volume or the atoms or the material as it moves, or you have a situation where it's like water and you can only measure movement through like a measurement space. Those are the Lagrangian frames and the Eulerian frames, and there really aren't other physical scenarios there. It's actually like kind of a binary, at least in kinetics. So this lets us think about like, how is the data that we have on a page framed? Is it measured through a constant viewport, or is it measured through a constant like reference point? There's some notes, but I did get to this concept here, which I think is important in that the notebook is a lattice. I didn't draw that in my list, but what that means is that there are places for things to go. Like there's an order, there's a pattern, there's an expectation, and lattices are infinite. And what we're doing is we're just like building our lattice. The concept of a lattice always confused me. Like with my background in material science, I had to be very good at crystal chemistry, which required knowing, the shapes of different 3D objects and stuff, and those lattices that go on for infinity. But it's okay when you're doing metals because they're pretty square, sometimes hexagonal, which is even better. They pack better. But ceramics are monoclinic and triclinic, and that's just sort of like, fuck your symmetry, bro. So, some notebooks have different symmetries to them. Some notebooks might go from A to B. Some notebooks might loop back on themselves. And I think that's called, there are these like Eulerian path concepts. I don't know. I'm putting a bunch of weird stuff together that I've heard over the years. So this is working towards a theory, some theories that, or frameworks for visualizing things in a more visual context. Just kind of keep working it. This was a calligraphy piece I did at dinner one night. Let's see. We want drawing. Almost there. Drawing, and then over in the corner here. We don't need this computer. Transition. Okay. So, yep. Mushrooms are ineffective against capitalist swine. I keep looking at this, like this L is lower than all the T's. There we go. Yeah. No tripping on the job, bro. Doesn't help. And then back to this shit. And then one more time. So I think each time like the words have changed and the axes have changed, and then we kind of bookend it with this drawing. Got one more drawing that I want to talk about. I keep trying to think about are there things we're missing in data visualization if we study them? And one of the things I've been reading recently is Kandinsky's point and line to plane. And I keep thinking about this idea that points are happen at the intersections of lines. So what if we represented, say, a line plot with infinite lines on the perpendicular or the angle that they're supposed to be? And the reason that this is interesting is because if you start at the immediate question is, well, what happens when the angles change? And from a artistic perspective, it actually provides tension. The intersection of lines can create tension. So now this angle can be used for something. There's a few different ways to use it, but like in the example of a concave versus a convex thing, the negative space is actually going to start to tell you a story. Like in a concave, or in a convex situation, the one side will never cross the other side. So I'm wondering if in this visualization style, we might see things in the midground or the background. We might see lattices or patterns or interactions of lines that we haven't really seen before. It's almost like when points and circles interact in a plot. What if they were lines instead? So this is kind of where we get to like what we really need are design. What we really need are these sort of design studies around how visualization makes us feel, which was related to the early work of Kandinsky. And this is kind of where I've gotten to as far as my working theory for data visualization, or I don't know, just data representation, or I don't know, man. Like, if you want to get all the way to Wittgenstein, it's like, how do we represent an object? It's a very, very fundamental question. But I think what I really see in data visualization is that we have a concept of what is shown. Okay, so what this is sort of saying is that there are certain semantics, certain style and color, certain forms, shapes, qualities, attributes to these things that are how it should be, how the thing that we have, the known is represented. We know we have a grid, we know we have a figure, we know a lattice exists, that being kind of the display of a web. This is strictly in terms of HTML here. And the schema concept might be implicit, but when it's explicit, it becomes a different story. So this is purely about the representation of the data, which is where our focus is. And this is where most of the work is accounted for. But there are aspects that we don't include. And I think like probably the first one to talk about is the null space. What isn't shown. So when I have certain types shown, I have certain assumptions about what I can do. And if somebody is like, oh man, well, what if I wanted to do this? It might be, oh, you're constrained by that idea being in the data's null space. Can't go there. So we have to consider what is actually possible. The other part that's important is silence. And this is the suspended judgment concept. So how does the time that we think about this thing, right? Like, it's not about your reaction to the data. A reaction to data is dangerous. And that's how charts lie to you. Data takes a little bit of time. I really started thinking, I don't know how much I want to go into this, but it's worth at least saying that like data visualization is a surrealist concept. It's trying to imagine things that are there, but aren't there. And I think there's a lot to learn from the media bending of surrealism and the techniques of layering, and bending of reality that's used to, communicate something perhaps with humor or care. So yeah, this is the first thing to consider is what isn't. Now, the next thing that we ignore, especially with data visualization, is the material quality of it. Now, the material quality, if it's on a computer, I think Kandinsky would say it has a non-material quality to it, additive light rather than subtractive light. So when we're making a data visualization, when we're representing an object in data, what is important to consider is what it's made out of. So yeah, I could have a line plot that visually shows something, but what if I think about that line plot as a sculpture made out of metal, and I recreate the line plot in a way and with a material that when I pluck it, it's got a certain sound, and then another line plot has a certain sound. And let's us think about ways to actually add like material reality and texture and quality to our data visualization. So the material is something that we often don't consider. We assume it to be generic, which is why we mistake print data visualization practices for non-material data visualization practices. When we're using print concepts in additive color systems, we're getting new media to do the work of the old, and that's incorrect. Wrong direction. I think the next thing to talk about in the visualization or the object representation is the vocabulary. A lot of times people bring their own vocabulary to a data visualization, and having explicit definitions. This is a total result. So the vocabulary matters, and then grammar is the next step of how the vocabulary is used. Those things really tie together. But I needed a better vocabulary in my accessible notebook work so that I can provide better accessible labels and accessible descriptions. At a certain point in the development, it got really hard to manage where all the oriole labels were. But by putting all of them into a central place, namely in the schema, I was able to have a more reasonable way of organizing all of the aria things. So I think that it would actually be worthwhile to jump over to a programming situation. Man, I don't know which, everything's all weird. Okay, this is a good one. Okay, so over here, let me zoom out real fast. We've got, let's see, if I go over to my GitHub, and then I look for, let me look for schema. I usually have a few schema things. NB schema, looks like that one. All right, so what I mean by vocabulary here is I'm actually using JSON schema because it's like the most portable implementation. So I can define what a notebook is, I can define what a cell is, and the title and the aria and the description generally map to aria labeled by and aria described by, respectively. So if I have the vocabulary in one place visually hidden, then I can reuse the text and the sound in a lot of other places in my design. So then we keep building out the vocabulary here, providing descriptions and titles for all the terms and also the types. And then we go and reorganize all of those things using references. So now I can say that the default columns in the notebook are, the index is index and ID, and then the rest of the values are these. And the schema acts as the source of truth for my vocabulary. It helps record the types, and it also, from those types, we can infer the types that we don't have. The schema never really shows up as anything. It kind of exists as a prototype of the object. And it's very important to provide the column descriptions specifically in like a table object, and the schema helps us do that. So we talked about adding, let's see. So we talked about adding silence and what isn't there, the unknown unknowns. And then we add the material part up here, which is effectively a known unknown. The vocabulary here is kind of the source of truth and kind of like a way known. Yeah, the known unknowns all live there. I don't know what to think about that one. Anyway, we've got one more. I shouldn't have continued along that fucking analogy. The last thing that we're missing here, and we've always been missing in data visualization, is the ground. What I mean by that is like I don't ever hear anybody talk about the foreground, the background, and the midground of a data visualization. And it's what I've been trying to do now. Because like I think that when you look at it that way, we don't do shit with the background, but we fucking could. The midground are the axes, and we can be playful with that. Again, learn from the surrealist. And then the foreground are all of the points and all of the glyphs and all of the, sort of focus of the thing. We really we don't play around enough. And what I'm sort of calling for is an artistic approach to object representation, object data representation. So, yeah, these are the things. This is adding these components, to me, creates a more cohesive space. When we bring the ground into play, we actually create space. We're kind of like, okay, this is this thing relative to that thing. One of the ways to consider this perspective here, and I know I talked about it before, but at least for the sake of continuity here, Margaret, I should bookmark her page because I go to it the most. Margaret 127. Margaret Lieteritz was a student at the Bauhaus, and she did paintings of her data visualizations. So this is some decomposition at a specific temperature with some pHs and dilution and I don't know, some study, but then she painted it, right? So now this painting here, yeah, this would have been framed by the literature. This would have been framed by an actual fucking frame hung on a fucking wall, and then it's real art. And then automatically there is an inside and an outside. This is the foreground. The frame's the midground. Where it's presented is the background. And I think we can look back and see that we can do so much better. It's kind of interesting for me to think about the silence that Margaret must have had when she was able to paint these things, or the choice for it. The work of this data visualization is much different. And I think what I'm kind of, actually, you know what? The work is not much different. It's that there is non-visual labor, hidden labor, when we exclude the material choices, the choices that we didn't include, the choices we didn't make, what we're using as a reference. There's a lot of things that people expect to be given to them in a visualization, but it might take more work than folks desire. So I don't know. I think that there's a better approach to visualizing art and experiencing art than there is in reading some esoteric research paper. I find that if I see beautiful art, I'm going to buy that book and I'm going to read that book. The art and science is the diminutive stature of art in scientific literature is fucking tragic. Give me comic books. Like, don't give me your made up little named world. I want to see it move. Anyway, yeah. So let's see. Are there any? Okay. So in this diagram here, we actually get to we get this opportunity to think about things in isolation. The first thing we started with is we started by adding the null space and the silence. And from the Kandinsky perspective, I kind of thought that this was like an appropriate place for the line to exist. It's often talked about that infinite horizontal or vertical lines are silent. But when we start adding angles and movement, we mess with the harmony a little bit. And in that, we create tension. So, like, if your data visualization is something about some fucked up gerrymandering or public health crises, fucking gut them, man. Like, make somebody feel something. Put real tension in there. I think one of the best examples of that is the shit. I didn't even realize I have not had my headphones on this whole time. That's crazy. Let's see if this fucks anything up. Okay, still good. Still good. Still good. All right. Yeah. So, the next aspect was sort of considering, these pieces of material. Like if a point was a rock, I could index it, give it an ID, know where it is, and then I know some row in the data entry where it lives. So when you put the point and the line together, you move to planes and the space and the grid and the perspective that you have relative to the art. And then the last aspect is the text. And this is the accessibility part. Because for like a user agent to use and experience the art or provide an experience for the art, it all whatever's of value has to be in the text, which is the importance of this vocabulary and the schema that holds it to ultimately be able to represent the object as a form, as forms in a figure. Really wanted to talk about that. I've been playing around with this diagram for quite a while, and I'm happy about the vocabulary that we've kind of gotten to. It's a lot of these are like fragmented concepts, kind of like put together. But even if there are holes in this, the perspective and opinions around data visualization from developed by people without artistic educations and critiqued by people without artistic educations creates a really suspect economy. Man, I think that that's good. Hour and 20 minutes. I talked about everything that I've done. I did my presentation. I talked about my drawings. I talked about this diagram. And yeah, I think that's a good time to call it. Killer. Peace.